Welcome, we're so glad you're here. Today we are going to get a tour of the Cary press room, and we get to catch a glimpse of some new typographic treasures from the Stephen O. Sachs collection. The Cary Graphic Arts Collection is one of the world's premier libraries on graphic communication history and practices. Their growing library holds over 45,000 volumes and over 130 archival collections. I'm really excited to welcome Amelia here today. Amelia Hugill-Fontanel is the Associate Curator in the Cary Collection. She is friend to Hamilton. She is on our board. She helped ensure that Ways Goose happened last year when we partnered with AFA, the American Printing History Association. And she's just a good gal. She specifically is an art historian and editor. She contributes numerous publications about the Cary Collection holdings. We're looking at graphic design, calligraphy, wood type founding. As manager of the Cary Technology Collection, she's responsible for teaching and maintaining some 19 different presses and several hundred fonts of metal and wood type. Amelia, I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Yay. And thanks so much to Hamilton for launching this amazing series. I saw some numbers yesterday in our board meeting. 3,900 people came and showed up for Hamilton Hangs. So congratulations to Hamilton, and especially Stephanie Carpenter, who's been the program officer to organize these. So thanks for keeping us together, Steph. So today, I'm here in my favorite place in the world, which is the press room in the Cary Graphic Arts Collection. I see a lot of my really good friends on this call, and I'm sorry to say some of you are new to me, and I'm glad to get to know you. So with that, I'm going to take just a few moments to tell you about the Cary Collection, what we are, where we are, and then we'll jump right into a tour. So bear with me if you've heard this spiel before. The Cary Graphic Arts Collection here at Rochester Institute of Technology is located in Rochester, New York, which is another Great Lakes city, just like Two Rivers, Wisconsin, except we're in Lake Ontario. We're almost on the banks of Lake Ontario. So that's about 6 hours northwest by car from New York City. A lot of people don't realize that New York State is so large. RIT is a library, is a university dedicated to technology. We have 9 different colleges here: engineering, science, computer software engineering, the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, and we have an amazing College of Art and Design, and that's where printing collections started here. So Cary is our rare book library located in the RIT libraries, and it's dedicated to collecting material about the history of graphic communications. And that's such a wide area of study that, of course, encompasses printing history, graphic design, typography, calligraphy, and anything that has to do with the art and history of the book. So that includes paper making and bookbinding and artist books and fine editions from all eras. The oldest item in our collection are cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia. And the newest ones are tablets that are digital tablets using e-ink and iPads and such. So we're trying to collect the swath of the way that people communicate, especially through the written and printed word. What makes Cary Collection so unique that in addition to those 45,000 books and hundreds of archives, we also make a commitment to really maintaining materials related to the history of letterpress printing. And of course, there's such amazing libraries and museums all throughout the world that do this too. And that's why we have such a Hamilton Wood Type Museum is one of these places. And that's why Cary Collection has such a synergy with the Hamilton. But in terms of academic libraries, I think we stand in the forefront of preserving technology for letterpress. And I need to revise my marketing speak, because now we're up to about 30 working letterpress printing presses and thousands of fonts of metal type and hundreds of wood type. So if you'll all indulge me, we're going to take a little tour through the press room today. I'm not going to do any printing today because I'm going to actually handle some books and I don't want to smudge ink on them. So we will go to our Steadicam now. So we're spotlighted. You could take the spotlight off of me. Thank you there, Steph. And so I have it set up so we can just kind of wheel around our press room here. Here you're seeing our Columbian press, iron hand press, from 1876. There's some platen presses and certainly other kinds of hand presses. We try and collect printing presses that are representatives of the different steps in the evolution of printing in terms of how they make the impression and the manufacturing processes. A lot of people ask us, how do you get these printing presses? And they come to us a number of different ways. One is donations, and that's by far the largest. And of course, I know all of you can relate to the school of big, heavy press movers. So if somebody wants to donate you a press, there's always a catch. Oh, if you can move it, you could have it. Well, that's the way that a lot of presses came to the Cary Graphic Arts Collection. Second way is through our School of Printing. You know, as technologies change, they certainly got rid of some of the letterpress equipment, and so Cary was the one to keep it up. Another way was through different kinds of building or projects that we've had with our mechanical engineering department. Students have built printing presses for us, and the one that is the most famous is our wooden common press that was built by mechanical engineers. It's an 18th century replica. And then finally, as I'm standing here showing this press here, which as you can see, it kind of has pole position in the room. I call it the one press to rule them all. Sometimes there's a printing press that just comes up for sale and we absolutely need to have it. And because it fills so many gaps in our mission and in our scope. This particular printing press I'm showing is a very famous one because of its provenance. It is the Kelmscott-Gowdy printing press. It's the iron hand press that was owned by William Morris, the founder of the arts and crafts movement. And this particular printing press actually was the one where he printed his minions printed his Kelmscott Chaucer from 1896. So this press came up for auction in 2013. And it was a press that we really had always been on our desiderata list as something belonging to the Cary Collection. Because not only did William Morris own it, also Frederick Gowdy imported it to the United States. He was an American type designer. Also, it was owned by a private printer named Spencer Kellogg, who lived around south of Buffalo, New York. And then finally, it came to Melbert B. Cary Jr., our namesake at the Cary Collection. So we wanted to really join Melbert Cary's printing press with his book collection. The last person that was significant who owned it was J. Ben Lieberman, who was the founder of the American Printing History Association. This is an organization that I'm very active in, so it's really wonderful to have this legacy. As you can see, when it came to us at the Cary Collection in 2014, it was in pieces. It's in perfect working order right now. It's actually a delightful press to print on. I was the one to supervise its putting together, and we've had conferences and we've had visiting artists come and use the printing press. So it's absolutely ready to go whenever we have a print job. What I have on it right now is a suite of ampersands that were designed by Frederick W. Gowdy. And this is some of his type that is lasting and extant in the Lost Gowdy type collection. And this is one of the things that we printed before we shut down in last spring. So I'm hoping to reprise a really nice keepsake edition of this piece because I didn't get to do it as much as I wanted to. A lot of people ask about how do you use these materials at RIT? And any faculty or staff member can ask for some kind of printing experience that will fulfill the learning outcomes in their classes. So I'll be the one to kind of mediate that. Also, we do our own fine press editions, and talking about land acknowledgements. I did one for the Cary Collection that deals with the Haudenosaunee people, who were the people that lived in our area. So if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to send you a little card of this Thanksgiving address that was recently printed. And we do a fair amount of printing for scholarly purposes too. So it is not uncommon that a type designer will call me up and say, do you have the original such and such typeface? Could you pull a proof for me so that I could digitize it? And stuff like that kind of looks like this kind of work. I had a student who was really interested in Eilenberg types. So here is a repro proof for him to do his digitization work. So there's a lot of great intersections that are happening in our Cary Collection press room here. I know that I'm with the wood type crowd right now, so let's take a moment to really look at some fantastic wood type. A lot of you, I see Meredith saying wood. A lot of you might be familiar with the Cary Collection because I've been doing a program that's called Adopt-A-Font for several years now. It's not Adopt-A-Fontanel, like my last name, my kids aren't up, but for adoption. But this is a program where we had a huge collection of wood type that came through a donation, and it was stored in a barn, so it was super dirty, and I couldn't catalog it until it was cleaned and proofed. So I cast out to our students in our community and said, if you need to pick up some volunteer time, please come and spend a couple hours cleaning up wood type. And in return, I will teach you how to print it. So it was like a mini apprenticeship. So through that process, we have cleaned, I think, about 200 fonts of wood type. So that's thousands and thousands of characters, including the collection, which I'm about to show you, which is the collection of Hebrew wood types. So in 2014, we were able to acquire a collection of Hebrew wood type from a collector in the Rochester area, Buffalo, Rochester area. So I think you guys can see stuff like that, okay?
Looks good.
And yeah, so this collection comprised about 40 wood types, and it was in the same state as I described before, dirty, dusty, kept in a warehouse. And so even though we didn't have the subject specialty to really read Hebrew very well, I set my students to doing the Adopt-A-Font treatment of cleaning the wood type and then setting it all up in fonts so we could proof it. It wasn't until last year that we were able to hire finally a specialist in this. And I know some of you have met her through the Hamilton Ways Booth. Her name is Shani Avni. She's on the call today. So hopefully if you have a question about Hebrew wood type, she can help me out because she really is the master of this. But right now, what we are doing in Shani's project and my project too, is proofing it all again, doing exact character counts, and really trying to make out some kind of cataloging schema, especially in terms of naming conventions and all the different kinds of data we want to collect over this. And all this kind of formative work is all in order. We want to do a big Hebrew wood type specimen. So we're probably about 2 years out from that project because there's a lot to be done. The wonderful thing we're finding is these, the fascinating ways that this stuff was manufactured or kind of altered through time. They are characters that often have their lamage sheared off the top or that have nails driven. This one isn't a good one to show that kind of alteration. Printers are problem solvers. So if you don't have the diacritic, why not stick a nail in there to get it there? So we're finding so much about this. The very strange thing is that we don't have any manufacturer marks on these characters. For instance, they would be on the cap A's in a Latin alphabet. They are not on the Aleph. So unfortunately, we are still trying to gather the clues of who would be the manufacturers to this. And I know Shani has spoken with Jim Moran at the museum to try and see the patterns that Hamilton has and see if they relate to any of the wood type that we have here at the Cary. So
do you mind if I ask a quick question? There was a good question from Alta. She's saying, do you or Shani know what this was used for specifically? Like, was it Hebrew or Yiddish posters? Do we know how it was actually utilized?
So I know a little bit, and Shani can back me up. So when we acquired it, the fellow had hazarded a guess that it was used for the Jewish daily newspaper called The Forward. That is a newspaper that had been in print since the late 1800s, an American paper. It is now still in print, but digitally. So that is under question. As we've gone into to find a lot of different information, there were such amazing Yiddish communities in the New York City area, which is where this type came from, that we really believe that it could have been in a print shop. We found evidence of different just Yiddish or Hebrew printing print shops in New York City area. It could have been there. So that's what we know so far. We have a suspicion it's for the Jewish Daily Forward, but we don't have confirmation. So thanks, Alta. And please, Shani, jump in if you have any other information.
Oh, that was perfect.
Okay,
Thanks, Amelia.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, you schooled me well. So there's great stuff. This is a perfect example of one of the fonts that has been altered in a way, especially these poor, Lamed is the only character in Hebrew that has an ascender, and it poses a big problem because every other character has mostly no descenders. Many of them don't, except for the final characters. And this one, you can see, has just been cut right off because it's just, who wants to set that extra leading or furniture spacing to accommodate the single ascender? So it's really fascinating how they would get around typesetting problems by just altering. It's like extreme kerning, right?
Yeah.
It's like kerning to mutilate in a way. So that is some of our Hebrew wood type that is in process. What we like to do for these kinds of collections is put them through a rigorous cataloging methodology. Some of you are familiar with this purple book. It's sold at the Hamilton gift shop. This is our type specimen. And so as type is added to the collection, we are actually cataloging it in such a way and adding data and giving numbers to it. So we hope to have some kind of guide for the Hebrew type that follows this one that we did for the Latin type. So to come, and I know I have a lot of really enthusiastic supporters in this project, and everybody has been so great in reaching out and meeting Shani after the Ways Goose and stuff too. Any questions? Yes.
There are questions, yes.
Excellent.
People want to know more. It's a two-parter. They would love to know more about the Adopt-A-Font program and also the cleaning method.
Oh boy. So the cleaning method is so simple, and I'm gonna, oh no, I lost my earbud. Let me just get some props here.
Sounds
so
good.
Simple. So Adopt-A-Font, I had to come up with a really quick way for students to help me out who had no experience. And so one of the things that I needed to do was find a material that was not toxic so that they could work with the type and not get hurt in any way. And so what I came up with and asked around to a bunch of people was automotive hand cleaner. So and so this would be like a mechanic's hand cleaner. There's a lot of different versions of it. Permatex is one, Goop is another, Gojo is another. This one happens to be Purple Power Hand Cleaner. As you can see, that's a cream cleaner. That cleaner has no orange grit, no grit. That's so important. We don't want to ever put any kind of grit material on it, on our wood type. So you would take just a little dab of this, not soaking a rag or anything, and then wipe very gently on all the 6 sides of the type. If any of the material, the cleaner, gets stuck in the counters, you use a Q-tip to clean that out. Now, I know a lot of people in the museum uses mineral oil. Absolutely, that's a wonderful way to do some cleaning. The key component is the oil, because this stuff, a lot of what it has in it is mineral oil. It also has some lanolin in it. If you can imagine, this is kind of like you're using furniture polish in a way to get humidity back into the type that has been dried out and cracked. So there's many different ways to do this. I really like this way because it's safe, and certainly using mineral oil is safe as well. It's not solvent based. After all that work is done to clean it all off with your rags, I usually have students do a kind of count. So, and really they are on the front lines of capturing the data that I need to capture. So you can see where it came from, who did the work. I like to know who did the work. So if they come back to me after they graduated 20 years later, I could show them their font. I ask them to measure it, that particular piece of type. I ask them I give them a crash course in type identification in terms of families, any kind of manufacturer information, the number of pieces, if any characters like a character that you need for a sound are missing. I don't consider like question marks missing characters. I consider the letter L a missing character. And then condition notes. The ones I love is when you find the bonus characters that have been carved on both sides. And some of you have seen that in your collections too. And that is essentially the Adopt-A-Font program. It's been going for, about since 2011, I believe. So really had a wonderful support from our student assistants to get these types back in working order, that then I bring over to the classes that are taught at RIT. I do teach a credit bearing class in letterpress, and also there's one that's taught off campus at Type High Letterpress in Rochester. So letterpress is still alive, as we all know, but here in Rochester too. Any other questions?
There were a couple of good questions. So specifically about the book, is there going to be a second volume with the new fonts that have been added?
There really should be, and that is my goal someday. Yes, you are absolutely right. So we have been getting the type specimens. So I have a collection of type specimens from all the new types using this process. So yes, there should be a second edition of this. It probably will not be like a full whole edition because these types all came from a certain collection, a certain donor. So I think it would be another book if we were to put it forward.
Great. There was also a good question about when you're cleaning the type. So we're back to clean. It's a little bounce around.
That's okay.
Are you, you know how old ink loves to sit into the counters and the angles. Are you guys cleaning that out when you're doing the cleaning of the type?
I really, since I'm working with unskilled people, I didn't want anybody gouging or pushing or doing anything that's out of the ordinary. I always tell a student when they're cleaning type, this stuff is 100 years old. It's been used. It's industrial material. Chances are it's not going to look that much cleaner than when you first started. The goal is to get the loose kind of dust and grime off of it so we could get a good print off of it. So I'm never really gouging in there. Plus we have thousands of pieces, and it's not a conservation project. It's really a cleaning project to get it good enough to print.
That is also what we do here at Hamilton. We're getting it ready to be used. Like we
Right.
want to get this stuff ready to be either in the classroom or the staff press room.
Yep. Any other questions before we move out to the reading room?
I'm curious, but we could do this in the after hours of what your rig looks like, but that might be a good your cart. It looks amazing, and you've got such a good setup.
So, my cart.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Let's see. I'm gonna spotlight the other one. There we go.
Here is my cart.
That's the cart.
So this is a standard library book truck, and it has an articulated arm on it, and then it has my camera. And actually, I have been teaching letterpress using this setup, and I know a lot of you can relate to that this past semester. So it is something that really has served us well. And since I'm moving into a public area, I need to put my mask on, so you'll forgive me for doing that.
Of course. What is our best? Are we going to be on your computer or the action cam?
We're going to be on the action cam still.
Okay, sounds good.
As I move. All right.
Sweet.
So we're going to exit our press room, of course, and then we are going to move into the Cary Collection reading room. And this is where we teach classes that are not printing related. And also if we have any readers, so people who want to use the collections, this is where they will, be. So it's a little, sorry, it's a little bouncy. And sorry, we're working on a lot of projects since we don't have any students right now. Our semester starts on Monday. So we can come around here to our table, which has the juicy stuff related to somebody that I have come to be very appreciative of, and that is the collection I'd like to talk about for the rest of my time today, and that has to do with Stephen Sachs. So this is a beautiful big birthday card from John and Robin Horn, Shooting Star Press, that came with the Stephen Sachs collection. Steve, if you sent him something, chances are he saved it, and now a lot of that stuff is at RIT. Stephen Sachs was an American printing historian. He died last year, very sadly, and he was a lovely person. And the collection that we are going to look at are just some snippets. We just got a grant to have a cataloger do the cataloging of the type specimens. And that was Steve's real life's work, was acquiring 19th century American primarily type specimens. So about 250 American type specimens came to RIT through this donation from the collection of Stephen O. Sachs. The ones that I want to show today, and I think we're going to have to come down this way so you can see them, are some really fantastic things that are new to me. So I'm learning a lot about them, and hopefully, you know, since we have the brain trust, you guys will give me some pointers here or things that I need to look out for when we're actually cataloging them. So sorry for the pause here. The first one I want to take a peek at are two specimen books that I have here that come from the Sachs collection. I really think they're fantastic. They're both very similar in format. We have a Damon and Pete's, which is in New York, and Crescent Type Foundry, which I'd never heard about before, but it's a Chicago type foundry. This one's 1899. This one is 1906. But as you get into both of these specimens here, we see that they're so similar in so many ways that you can't help but start to draw conclusions that they were really selling almost the same kind of typefaces. So, and here is some of the evidence that I love seeing, and I haven't really been able to do this before because I didn't have very similar types in the collection, type specimens in the collection. So this opens up a whole realm. What you're looking at right now is two spreads from each type specimen book for the typeface called Satanic. And it's not satanic like the devil. It's actually a typeface that was a knockoff of William Morris's Troy typeface. And it was called Satanic because somebody approached him asking if he would license the typeface, and he said, well, why don't you go to hell? So that's one of the urban legends about it. But as we look at this typeface from the 1890s, it was originally issued by ATF from these two different foundries in two different American cities. We have almost identical type specimen pages. So it's really fascinating to see how ATF perhaps would send galleys or send electrotypes or plates so that you could sell the same typeface for different markets. So that's, and I just happened to be flipping through these books the other day, doing an inventory, and then noticing, like, didn't I just see that in a different book? So that's really great. new intersections. Now I know all of you want to see the wood type sections in books like these, and definitely there is wood type sections. So they would have contracted with a wood type manufacturer to offer it. And the one that I, again, saw was that this type manufacturer had the same, almost the same specimen again for that same Clarendon. So really a lot to learn in this kind of comparative bibliography, comparative type specimen review. What's great is that one of them, it says the type is called Excelsior type. So we need David Shields on here to tell us who was manufacturing Excelsior typefaces. So that's just one little cutie pie that I have gotten out here from the Stephen Sachs collection. I know some of you maybe want to dive a little deeper. I do. I always want to see the first examples of things. This one is a type specimen from 1859, the Dickinson Type Foundry in Boston, Massachusetts. Here, that's looking a little better there. So very, very early. I mean, we can trace Darius Wells' method of cutting on the pantograph to the 1820s and 30s. So this is only about 30 years after that. 1859 Dickinson type specimen book. And it's Stephen Sachs was such a wonderful collector in a time when people were not collecting this stuff. So 1970s. So he amassed this just comprehensive collection of all the different foundries that eventually went to become ATF. ATF, American Type Founders, formulated from about 23 foundries in 1892. So Dickinson was one of them. But what's so great about this one is that it has all the regular things that you see in a type specimen manual in great condition, not a lot of cutouts, not a lot of torn pages. But then as we get to just the regular bookwork, now we start to see the fancy things that we can, of course, these are all metal types in this particular piece here. But as we go on, we can see our favorites here. In the wood, ta-da! So it's total type spotting, total indulgence to see these kinds of early typefaces. These ones are called Excelsior. Yeah, so manufacturer, sold by Phelps and Dotton for Boston Dickinson's Type Foundry. Yum, such black impression, such an impression that there must be some kind of acidic content to the ink. So it is leaving a latent image on the backs of these pages, or even burning right through. Absolute kiss impression. The paper is 19th century acidic paper that has been coated in some way or calendared, so it's super smooth. No flurry paper here, no crane here. So that's some of our earliest wood type specimens that have come from the Stephen O. Sachs collection. But you know, once you're a collector, you're always a collector. So he wasn't always interested in just 19th century stuff. This is an early 20th century ATF book, and it's new to me. We didn't have this one in the Cary collection. What I love about it is the modernist typography of it. So it really is of a time, that mid-century modern, probably around World War II era. I don't have the date exactly on this one. The one that I love about this type specimen, I mean, we see classic 1900s, you know, mid-century modern faces like Park Avenue. Is there's this whole section on stymie, which I think is an underrated type. And as we get through Stymie, I had no idea, and I haven't seen it, maybe some of you guys have it in your collections, that you have the elongated characters. Oh, look at this stuff. This stuff is great. These elongated characters are made in 3 weights and cast in a variety of sizes. Please, if you guys have this type, print it and send me something. I'd love it. Look at this crazy stuff. I've never seen it before. So it's kind of like, what's that, Parsons, right? That has those elongated characters too.
Yeah.
All kinds of good stuff from mid-century modern. It kind of reminds me, I just finished the Queen's Gambit on Netflix and was able to see some really great, the production design had a lot of nice typographic things in it. So moving along, because I want you to just get a lot of bang for your buck, Mr. Sachs, you know, once I said this before, once you start collecting, you just can't stop, right? And one of the things that he collected was anything related to printing, essentially. So he was collecting, I'm going to show you we have several portfolios of incunabula. So these are single leaves, and that was a very popular thing to do back in the 20th century, was to cut up imperfect books and offer single sheets of materials for sale. One of the things that I really love that came in this, what you're looking at right now, this particular piece here, is a sheet from Conrad Swinheim and Arnold Penartz. So they were the printers who took the amazing invention of Gutenberg's from Mainz to Subiaco near Rome and started the first printing press in Italy. So we in the Cary did not have an example of this very famous printing establishment before Mr. Sachs's donation. So now we have at least one leaf of this, so we could show scholars and people can look at and compare the types, how they changed as they went from pure black letter in Northern Europe to a more humanistic old style as they go down to Italy. So that this particular piece that we're seeing, of course, looks way better than the 19th century type. And this piece is from 1470. So, of course, because the paper is so much better in terms of being linen-based paper rather than wood pulp. For all of you guys who are interested in like Bruce Rogers Centaur and Adobe Jensen, this is a page from Nicholas Jensen's book on Pliny from 1476. So now you can see the original impressions there. So very soon, this collection will be photographed and put onto the RIT digital collection site. So, so that all of you can download the actual image and then use it for your own work. Oh, everybody loves a Nuremberg Chronicle. This is a page from the Nuremberg Chronicle. They seem to be sold a lot. A lot of copies of this book went out, and they have these fantastic woodcuts showing the history of the world through and through these texts, but also the imagery. So there's that kinds of stuff that came from Mr. Sachs's collection. Just wonderful to be able to see inside a collector's mind and appreciate the things that he really took the time to add to his collection. And I think I'll show you one last thing, because we all have a feeling about this particular book. And I was really surprised to see that he had this in his collection. It's not the whole book. Everybody, who's the first to say what knows what it is? I can't. Who wins, Stephanie?
Cary, she is on it.
Jerry won. Of
Oh
course
no,
he
well,
won.
Jerry and Cary, yep, the Jerry and Cary twins.
So this is not the entire book. This is the specimens of chromatic wood type. And it's a few pages that have come to us that are disbound from the original book. And so we have a few pages from the William H. Page Company. And I know David Shields is doing a census of even this kind of stuff. So I was happy to see that Mr. Sachs had a few of these as well. Ah, juicy, juicy, juicy. So if any of you are interested in the Page chromatic, the Cary Collection has this digitized, so you can go on our digital collections and see, because we have one of the, I think, 10 or 11 copies that are existent and cataloged in the world.
There are lots of questions which I'm not going to ask yet, but there is a question about these specifically. Are they one-sided?
They are one-sided. They are one-sided, printed on that same 19th century paper, super calendared paper. It's really smooth. They're very acidic. They crack and they burn very easily. So, kiss impression, absolutely. The Newberry Library in Chicago, their copy is fully disbound. Our copy is also disbound. And this one, I believe, probably had been cut so that it was nice and smooth on this side, because they were bound into the original binding. You can shoot with the questions, Steph. Go for it.
Sounds good. Well, we'll say one more about this one. Jerry from Virgin Wood Type is curious if you've looked at how the color compares to the full book.
Not yet, but that is a fantastic thing to think about. I have not done that yet.
Great. So some other good questions. One specifically was, you did say that the Sachs collection was going to be digitized. Does that also include the specimens?
Yes, so we did get, we got a grant to do the cataloging and digitization of all the pre-1924 materials. So that means book specimens. So yes, the actual type specimens will be up. And I know that's going to be a big slog for our digitization crew, but it'll be good work because a lot of those specimens are really thick. So yes.
Great. And I've put some links over in the chat for people to find more information as well. Okay, thank you. And then let's see, there were some, Allison had a really interesting question. I like this. Can people ask to see the letters from specific people that were written to him?
Written to Mr. Sachs?
Yes.
So, yes. So I haven't gotten through all the collections yet in terms of the archival stuff, and archival is different than a book. It gets cataloged a different way, but any correspondence that he carried on will be eventually cataloged. So it'll say like something like letters to Paul Bennett, and all that correspondence will be in there. So yes, eventually.
Awesome. Another good question. They were kind of talking about that bleed through that we were seeing. Yeah. Someone said, could it be oil or solvent? Or is like, what's known about that?
So it really could be oil. It could be definitely, you know, inks are made of a pigment and then some kind of vehicle. So the vehicle is what makes it flow. And at this time, it would have been oils such as linseed oil. So definitely either the pigment or the vehicle could have had acidity to it, and both of them could contribute to set off, bleed through, and even I've seen in some cases burn through. So whatever is in that material is so caustic that it's burning through the paper, and actually the holes are appearing in the print. So yep, any of those. And really there's amazing conservators who do that kind of chemical analysis to see what's happening to stuff like that.
That's great. Well, and along that same line, do we know of any processes to stabilize acidic paper?
There are processes of deacidification. However, they are so intensive and expensive that I know myself as a custodian, I can't engage in that all the time. I'd have to hire somebody to do that. So what we try to do is we try to mitigate, and we try to at least put the materials in an acid-free enclosure, or if they are affecting what's next to them, we put interleaving of acid-free paper between those acidic pages, and then do things like, you see that I have like Mylar here, so things aren't scuffing and touching each other, or putting them into dark storage that's climate controlled. So it's like this big laundry list of things that we can try and make it stop, so or it doesn't affect another thing that it's next to.
That's great. There's, I think, one last question that I really saw that was talking about, can you talk more about the details of digitization, like resolutions or cataloging techniques?
Oh my goodness.
We could be here all day. Yes. Yes, we can.
By the way, I'm showing, I just found this the other day. It's a Caslon specimen from 1785. So, and I was really happy. And this one's for Shani, who is our Hebrew type scholar, that there's a whole section of Greek and Hebrew that go all the way down to Brevier Hebrew. So she's going to run out of here, out here in the reading room in a minute to kind of look at this. I know her. So anyway, so talking about digitization. So anything that we have in the Cary Collection, we have a really liberal access policy of if we have it, we want people to be able to see it. And I know, especially in these times when we can't travel, this is becoming so important. So the things that go into digitization really first have to deal with, if we are taking a photograph or a scan of it, are we hurting it, right? That we have to always keep that in mind, that we need to preserve these items before they even get to the digitization table or the camera. So there's that. In terms of resolution, that is like a moving target. So I've been doing this job for about 20 years. And I remember the first cameras that we used for digitization put out like files that were 12 megabytes. And now the things that we're using are going up to like a gig per image. So the camera that RIT Libraries has, it's the real fancy one, is called the Phase 1 camera. What we really want to do, with this goal in mind, is take a photograph the best possible way that we can at the highest resolution once, so that we don't have to do it again in the future. So that becomes a digital master. And then we can get all these derivative files that can go online. So there's so much to talk about in terms of resolution and preservation and handling in digitization that I think people at Hamilton Museum are doing too, in terms of digitizing their blocks. So maybe that's another hang, Steph.
Well, to that point, I will say two things. One, we can do another hang. We will always have you, Amelia. And secondly, I'm going to give everybody the very first peek. I don't want to, I want to share. So no one else has seen this yet. We just put out a brand new gallery looking at Inquirer pieces in Hamilton's collection. So after the ham hang, go check that out. I just put it over in the chat, because it is delightful and wonderful and interactive, and you get to see pieces and learn more about the history of pieces here at Hamilton. And you guys, this is the first time we've announced it. So thank you, Amelia. Board member, set and
knock it out of the park. This is one of my favorite. So this particular Caslon specimen has Syriac and Arabic and Armenian and Samaritan. So definitely all these different kinds of typefaces that were needed in, the 18th century to do scholarly work. There's even Saxon on here, which has, this is Saxon up here, which has its own set of really interesting characters that go into it.
Can you say what we're looking at again, just one more time?
Sure. This is the William Caslon specimen from 1785. So when in doubt, use Caslon, right? By this time, he is the letter founder to His Majesty. These kinds of resources are things that I use all the time when teaching our students here at RIT, because especially if you know Adobe Caslon, why shouldn't you see the original? And then there's a lot of really fun stuff in the Sachs collection. that's this kind of ephemeral printing material. This is a advertisement for a toy printing press. I love that it says gift for boys that will benefit them mentally, morally, and financially. Yeah, well, it says if anybody has printed on one of these little things, it's hard to get an impression. So there's really great stuff. And I think I will end in the show and tell on something that was hanging on Mr. Sachs's wall in his press room. And it's a piece from Shooting Star Press that John Horn produced and gave to friends. And so you were able to move this around. Now, I met Mr. Sachs and talked to him on the phone many times, and he was always super cordial and very positive. So he printed this one himself. The rest of them are a little bit more ornery, shall we say. So I should just kind of co-opt this and put it on my office door so my student assistants know what they're walking into, and they get a little more pointed as we go on. I won't go on past that.
We'll have to talk to John about a reprint, new edition of the Today's Mood.
Right. Adding new words. I don't know when this was done. It'd be great to talk to John to get an idea for the years of some of these things. But Mr. Sachs had a whole collection of them. He really appreciated them. So I'll take any more questions, and I know we're gonna finish up strong pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna show everybody's face. It's nice to see everybody, and we'll spotlight as needed. So first, I'm gonna say, Amelia, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know just how to please the people to see the type. So thank you for that.
Super duper.
And people in the chat were awesome. Everybody shared so many good links and helped answer each other's questions. So hey, Ham Hang community, you guys make my day. So we can still have more questions. I just wanted to say that because it was so nice to see. Ooh.
So yeah, let's end on this. Souls dwell in printer's type. That's another piece from Shooting Star Press, 2008.
So do you guys have any more questions? I think I got most of them in the chat. If I missed it, you let me know or speak up. Please feel free to unmute.
Do we have any examples of Stephen's stage design work?
Oh, great question. And I can answer some, like I see Matt Kelsey's question too. So Mr. Sachs, and I'll put in the chat an obituary that I wrote about him. Mr. Sachs, his profession was stage design, and he actually did set design for TV shows, specifically soap operas in New York City. So he retired in 55, and then printing became his retirement gig. So we do not have his stage design stuff. I have one piece that accidentally came with us that where his set design materials went was Yale University Library, where that was where he got his degree in drama. So that collection is there if you're really interested.
Thank you.
Somebody asked, yeah, I think Matt Kelsey asked how many fonts of metal type. So yes, there was metal type that came. So it's about 450 fonts of metal type. He packaged them in the small Lions boxes. So it's not full cases of type. They're all really compact, very easy to deal with.
And a good question from Craig, how well are writing systems beyond Latin and Hebrew represented in the collections? And it sounds like overall.
Overall, so in terms of type, almost nothing. We have maybe a stray font of Greek, but the Hebrew, which we now have about 40 fonts of, is the only non-Latin letterpress type that we have. In terms of books, that is something that we're really working hard to diversify our collection. Very straight up, the first 45 years, this was a very European collection. And that's just the way, people approached bibliography and rare books then. So since then, we're trying to diversify and really tease out and catalog. When I see things like that Caslon specimen that have non-Latin characters in it, then make a note so people can find them in addition to the Latin. So it's a combination of cataloging and new acquisitions.
A couple of other questions. I think you spoke to this a bit. Is that second volume being planned for the wood type specimens of Cary? You can tell what Jerry's thinking about.
Yeah, it's in the works, Jerry, but it's in a long works. That's a long-term plan. I love how Larry asked me, why is there a bell on the top of the Kelmscott press? Well, Larry, it's for freedom of the press. So the last owner of this printing press was J. Ben Lieberman, and you could look him up. He wrote books on freedom of the press. He believed that everybody had a prerogative to publish and print whatever they wanted, and that was exercising our constitutional rights. And so this isn't, when British people come and see this press, they think that's ridiculous that there's a Liberty Bell on the top of the press. But this is something that he put on there. It's not permanent, so I could take it off. But when he had people over to visit to use this printing press, as soon as they used the press, he encouraged them to ring the bell for freedom of the press. And so when we have open houses, it's really hard to do an edition and keep ringing the bell. So in the beginning, I'll ring it. And at the end, to finish the run, I'll ring it again for Mr. Lieberman.
Very cool. Thank you, Amelia.
Nice to see you, Larry.
I'm sorry I had to walk away to help a customer in the shop during the middle of the presentation. I had posted a question in the chat about whether the letters are indexed yet and we could search or reach out to you for specific correspondence.
Not for Mr. Sachs's collection, but you certainly can reach out, and maybe you have somebody that you're interested in that a different collection will address. So for instance, a contemporary to Stephen Sachs was a man named Paul Standard, and we have his whole archive of correspondence. So that might be, if you're interested in typography, they overlapped a lot. So
I'm purely selfish reasons. My granddad corresponded with Mr. Sachs, and so I would like to see my granddad's side of the letters.
Sure. Yeah. We haven't gotten to that part of the collection. We're doing the type specimen books first. So I will tell you that. But please reach out. Send me a note, please.
I think there's one last question, and then we will wrap up because we're on the hour. Tom Parsons says Steve was printing specimens of his metal type. Included in the APA bundles was a full collection of these done.
So I might have that in the archival material. He was such a great record keeper. He did really nice bins of things that he printed. I know I do have, he started to do type specimens of his metal type in a small booklet format. So I know we have that. The other thing that he did, there is a fair amount of APA material in the collection. So bins and bins and bins of it. If any of you are part of the APA, you know how it can accumulate. So I'd have to go through it. It's ongoing work.
Thank you. That sounds good. Now, Amelia did say she could stick around for a little bit. I'm going to do the official wrap up so that way, if anyone has other meetings or things they need to go to, they can. Otherwise, we will stick around for a bit. I want to say thank you, everybody, for, let's change my view real quick. I like seeing everybody's faces. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us so often for these. Amelia, that was absolutely amazing. It hit all the right notes, and thank you for all the time it takes to prepare for us. I know that it doesn't just happen. So thank you so much.
It's a delight.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who joined us. A lot of you are members, and that is how we keep this going. So I want to say thank you for all of your support. If you aren't currently a Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum member, and you can do it, I ask that you do. It really helps us make sure that we can keep doing programming like this every week.